For the Python programming class, you're going to need several programs to be able to work. And the most important one, other than Python itself, is going to be Visual Studio Code. You'll want to get Python. And download for yours. Make sure you're at version 13. Version 3. I'm at a lower version, so if you have a Mac, it comes with Python 2 installed. We are not using Python 2. The language is significantly different. I'm just updating mine because I have a version that's about probably 6 months or a year old. And so that's a fairly straightforward process that I would do first. Then you want to get Visual Studio Code. We'll also need GitHub, but I'm going to do that separate because it's a little more complicated. Now be careful. There is also Visual Studio. Do not do Visual Studio. You want to do Visual Studio Code. Notice the different symbol. You want the one with the blue X. I actually deleted it just so I could reinstall it. So you want to accept the agreement. Legal authorities would tell you to read the entire thing. I like having the open with code option here for when I download things. You can create a desktop icon if you want. I usually leave mine in the start bar. Now at school, we're going to have some stuff that you won't need at home. So let me go ahead and open up Visual Studio Code. This is what you should see. Please go through, get start with VS Code, learn the fundamentals, get started with Python development. These are great. I'm not going to go through them with you, but you should go through them on your own. What I'm going to do is I'm going to work with some extensions. And it automatically installed Python for me, and then I'm going to, and if it hasn't, just you want Pylance, Python, and Python debugger. You'll see how to do that in a second. I'm going to go look up, I have a whole list. My list was created by me and ChatGPT with me asking questions. I do this every semester because new extensions come out and I'm not aware of them. So I try to get what's considered the best at the time. We use one in class that you won't use at home. Unless you're okay, let me rephrase that. You're not likely to use it at home unless I'm going to be regularly tutoring you over Zoom, in which case it's a good one to have. So I have your list of extensions in the modules. And here's the list. So you want Python and multiple screens. If you're going to be a full-time programmer, or if this is where you want to go with your career, I recommend dual monitors. You can, if you're working on a laptop, you can usually plug them into a TV through an HDMI cord. That works as a good second monitor. I have 2 curved monitors. I also have a drawing screen that's also a monitor. I'm not going to turn this off where it can't come back at this point. I will in the future. So we have the Python extension, Pylance, Python debugger. It automatically installed those for me, probably because I had them installed before I deleted it. We want PEP8. This is our style guide for Python. I'm going to install it. So you want to check format on paste, format on save, format on type. When we try to work with it, it should ask me which one to use. So I'm going to test that. So I'm going to go back to my File Explorer. I'm going to create a Python Spring 25. You guys can just do Python. I get a different one for every semester. You're not going to, you hopefully will not take this class more than once, unlike me who teaches it every semester. I am going to trust myself. And I'm going to do test.py print hello world. That is your most basic Python program. I'm not going to explain the program right now, but that will display hello world on the screen. We'll get into that later. This one here means it's not saved. Control S will save it. This arrow will run it. It appears down here. So I set up my formatting. I want to set the default formatter. So black, auto pep 8, and this is the one I wanted. Oh, I got pep 8 instead of auto pep 8. Well, that makes a difference. Okay. Auto pep 8. That's the one I want. Okay, now I should be able to and that appears to have installed itself. This is how I do a block comment. And it has got it set. So we're going to configure the default compiler, AutoPep 8. We should be good to go. So I will fix that in my required plugins. Okay, so the next one that we're going to install is AutoDocString. This helps it form meaningful comments. That's this one. You shouldn't actually need to configure it. Get lens. This gives you some additional functionality in Visual Studio Code we'll get into later. Code spell checker. This is one of my favorites. We'll come back to this because we've got to set up Git, so don't worry about it. We just want it installed. Back to extensions. Code spell checker. So live share, you don't need at home unless you expect me to be tutoring you or Tony to be tutoring you online. It allows us to work collaboratively on a piece of code. We will use it in class. We will install this in class. So in class required, at home not. The material icon theme is optional. it just makes things a little bit easier to work with. Okay, so now I can go back here, test.py, Control S saves that, it's running, Visual Studio Code is working, and we have all the plugins we're going to use installed, and we should be good to go. This is my live share, this is my Git lens, we've got testing, we've got extensions, we have run and debug, we have source control, this is for GitHub, and we have search. We'll learn to use these later. Visual Studio Code takes a while to become a completely master, but you'll learn it a little bit as we go. So that's what you need for installing Python, Visual Studio Code, and all the plugins.